Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. This is Matt with Coyote Creek Archery. Today I want to talk to you about release aids for compound bows. There's been a big trend recently, and if you spend any time on YouTube or online, you see a lot of people talking about handheld releases and how you must be using a handheld release. These old wrist strap releases with the index finger, they don't work anymore. You can't shoot with them properly. There's no reason to be using those. And I want to kind of go against the grain on that and talk about why I personally use an index style of release. I'm not saying that there's anything bad with the handheld releases. There's a lot of benefits to them. I think if you're shooting longer distances, if you're shooting some 3D archery or maybe just some target archery, obviously you want to be looking at using a handheld release. But as a bow hunter and someone who is a mobile bow hunter, this is a lot more practical to me than a handheld release. And I'll explain why. Obviously, a lot of people start out, especially if you started out years ago, you probably started out with a wrist strap index type of release. A lot of people are wanting to punch the trigger with that, and that's the major downfall of this type of release. As people develop target panic, they're punching the trigger, and they're not as consistent and as accurate as they should be. Whereas with a handheld release, you're working more with back tension and you're able to control the shot a little bit better. And I get that, and I see the points and all that, but what I'm saying is you can do a lot of the same things with this release with some practice if you're practicing the correct way. And that's been my experience. With a handheld release, the way that I hunt, I'm not typically hunting out of tree stands. I do hunt whitetails and mule deer, elk hunting and pronghorn hunting and that type of thing. And a lot of it is on the ground. I'm moving, I'm being mobile, I'm doing some calling, I'm setting up and moving around a lot. And if I've got a handheld release, what I've found is I'm setting it on the ground, I'm getting my rattling antlers out, and I'm rattling and I'm grunting and I'm stomping and making noise. And then when I have a chance to make the shot, I've got to find my release on the ground, I've got to get it set up. Or maybe I'm moving and I move and I leave my release laying there on the ground, those types of things. With this, I know it's always on my wrist. I know that it's always there and I'm not going to lose it. And that's one thing that I have found to be a big help to me. The other thing is just finding consistency with the handheld release. I found that if I came back and I tried to rotate my wrist to anchor, back in here somewhere, I was always putting torque on my D loop, and I would notice that my arrow was always having a little bit of twist to it, and I didn't like that. I felt like I was torquing the arrow a little bit, and when I started out, I was getting a surprise release with a thumb button release, but then the more I worked with it, I was finding I was less consistent, and I shot a lot better with this than I did with my handheld. I think a lot of people that are pushing handhelds are probably hunting in a different way, or maybe just focused on 3D or target archery. I think a lot of them are just trying to sell you a $200 or $300 release, and that's part of it as well. So take that for what it's worth. A $75 to $100 wrist strap release is going to do a lot of what you need to do. Most of the people that come into my store, I would say, are hunting whitetails out of tree stands. They're shooting within 20 yards. And if they're punching the trigger, they're probably able to hit a pie plate at 20 yards and make an ethical shot on a deer. Now, I'm not saying that's what everyone should do. I'm not saying that's the best method, but I'm saying that's what works for a majority of bow hunters that I work with and the people that come into my store. And so a wrist strap makes the most sense for that. I will show you here how I use my release. There's some different ways to set it up so that you're not developing so much target panic, you're not punching the release. I've never had a case of target panic or having to dealt with target panic with this type of release. And I've tried other options, but this is always what's worked best for me. So I'll grab my bow here and we'll take a few shots and I'll show you some ways to set up your release and to shoot it to maybe make you a little bit more accurate and a little bit better shot with a wrist strap index style of release. The release that I personally use is a Scott Jaws release. It's a wrist strap release, and it's got several nice things that I like about it. It's what they call their hyper jaw, so it's kind of a hybrid design. It has a hook on this one side and then it's straight on the other, and they both will open up together. Gives me a nice smooth release. There is a little set screw right down in here that you can adjust the travel with, but that's something you want to be very careful with. It doesn't take a whole lot of adjustment for that to become really on the weak side, to where if you're drawing back, it may not grab onto your D loop. It may want to slip off. You'll end up punching yourself in the face and that type of thing. So be very careful with that. I've played with that in the past, and I've kind of just gone back to the factory setting and really like where it's set up as far as the factory setting goes. It does have a lockout here to where if it's on my wrist, it'll lock out straight and it's not going to be dangling around. But I can also lock this back to where now, if it's on my wrist, it's back here and it's out of the way, and I'm not having to fight it being in the way of that type of thing. It has a swivel to it, so where it works good for a left-handed or right-handed shooter, which is nice. And then it's got several adjustments here with set screws where you can adjust the length of this depending on the size of your hands. But the way that this should fit, and I'll go ahead and strap this on for you. And I've got small wrists, so I go down pretty tight on the settings here. But what I like to do is set this up so that the ends of the caliper, the ends of the release, end up being right about where my fingers meet my hand. The tip of your index finger is going to be very sensitive. So you're going to be more likely to want to punch the trigger if you're shooting just with the tip of your index finger. I like to get more of a hook into my hand like this. And that way when I'm drawing back, I can use back tension, and I'm using more of the knuckle of my hand rather than just the tip of the index finger. So I'll grab my bow and show you how that's going to look when I'm drawing and taking a shot. Okay, I'm here with my bow. You can see the target behind me, pretty close here to take a shot, but I'll show you how I make this work with back tension. You're wanting to kind of pinch your shoulder blades together, use those back muscles rather than jerking the trigger with your index finger. So as I draw back, I get settled in. Notice my finger is not even on the trigger yet. So what I'm going to do is I'll just take my whole hand and just kind of wrap it around. And then as I pull, I can pull through the shot without having to actually squeeze the trigger or actually try to depress it with my finger. I'm just pulling through, and as I pull through, my release is going to stretch a little bit, and my finger is just going to come in contact with that and open it up to give me the shot. So works really well. The best way I think to practice that is just like this. I'm just a couple of yards away. If you're struggling with target panic, one thing that may even be helpful to you is, it's early in the season. We're here in March, so you've got some time to shoot over the summer. Even just take your sight off your bow and don't even shoot with the sight. Just get close and just focus on your shot execution. Work on the back tension, working on releasing with those muscles, and not so much punching the trigger with your index finger. That works really well for me. Again, I prefer this type of release. I know there's others out there. I've tried a lot of them. And I'll have some here in my shop for people to try out if that's something they're wanting to look at. But for the style of hunting that I use, this makes the most sense. I always have my release right here with me. It's really easy to take a quick shot and get set up quickly to take a shot if I need to, rather than having to fumble around for a release. I don't prefer having the handheld. This works so much better for me. So that's what works for me. I know some of you, things work better for you, and that's great. That's what's nice about archery. We've got a lot of options and a lot of different ways to accomplish the same thing. So not everything is a one size fits all for everyone. So anyway, I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or comments, maybe suggestions for other videos, leave them down in the comments below. If you want to contact me, you can always give me a call or send me a text, shoot me an email. All my contact information is on the website, coyotecreekarchery.com. And thank you for watching.